Most people who watch basketball know the point guard as the player on the court who facilitates the entire offense by handling the ball, making plays, and racking up assists. The stereotypical point guard usually is not the leading scorer on the team, but they average usually 7 assists or more a game. But in recent times, point guards such as Stephen Curry, Derrick Rose, Kyrie Irving, and Damian Lillard have shown that you don't necessarily need to be an amazing pass-first point guard to be a winner. Now first, let's take a look at the history of the point guard position. Back in the day when basketball was a more position-based sport, the point guard was known as the guy who had to create scoring opportunities for his teammates. And some of the guys who were great at that early in NBA history were players such as Bob Cousy, Isaiah Thomas, and Magic Johnson. And these were all guys who were referred to as being pure point guards because they prioritized getting their teammates open shots, although they were also still talented scorers. And fortunately, these three guys also played on teams that were talented enough to win championships. And early in history, since Cousy was a part of the Celtics dynasty during the Bill Russell era, he set the standard for what a point guard should be because he was able to win 6 championships, while the talented scoring guards around that era, Jerry West and Oscar Robertson, were each only able to win 1 championship each. And that was only after they were gifted their respective elite big men, Wilt Chamberlain and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Also, I should point out that Walt Frazier, who was also a decent passer in that era, won his 2 rings playing alongside an elite big man in Willis Reed. But as time went on, point guards such as Isaiah Thomas and Magic Johnson were praised as the greatest point guards for being able to embody what it meant to be a true PG while also winning championships. And since then, other point guards have entered the league and embodied this pass-first point guard persona, such as John Stockton, Steve Nash, Rajon Rondo, Jason Kidd, and Chris Paul. But since the Detroit Pistons' 1990 NBA championship run, the elite pass-first point guards have struggled to win championships. And since then, some of the top championship point guards have been scoring guards and more well-balanced scoring passing guards such as Chauncey Billups, Tony Parker, Kyrie Irving, Stephen Curry, and Kyle Lowry. But why is it that scoring guards have been more successful than pass-first point guards? I think it starts with the fact that point guards who look to score more usually do tend to be decent passers, which makes them more of a threat than a guy who you already know is looking to hand the ball off. And this creates more difficulty for defenses because now you have to worry about a Stephen Curry and a Damian Lillard and a Russell Westbrook type guy who can get 30 on any given night, but they can also give you 8+ assists, which makes them even more difficult to guard, and their impact on the game is greater than a guy who only passes. And even the pass-first point guards of today, Chris Paul, and even LeBron for that matter, are great scorers who know when to be aggressive. Another reason I feel that the scoring guard has become more popular today is because of the realization from players and front offices that you have to surround your star point guard with other guys who can create their own shots. Back in the day when guys like Magic, Stockton, and IT were leading the league in assists, they often played with a good big man or forward who could score, but the rest of the team was filled out with players who couldn't create their own shots for themselves. And over time, teams realized how important it was to have several players on a team who could create for themselves, which is probably why guys like Steve Nash and Jason Kidd didn't win in their primes, because they would carry the entire offense and were getting assists off guys like Kenyon Martin and Amari Stoudemire, who were good pick and roll players but not necessarily great shot creators. And unfortunately for Kidd, by the time they did get another elite shot creator like Vince Carter, the team was much worse than the years when they were going to the finals and they were unable to get past the hump. And with Steve Nash, when he did have another great shot creator on the team like Joe Johnson, the team unfortunately was unable to re-sign him and he left for the Hawks, leaving Nash to be again the sole creator of the entire offense. And some people do argue that Rondo broke the streak of passing point guards who did win a championship, but they don't realize that when the Celtics won in 2008, Rondo was only in his 2nd year in the league, and he only averaged around 5 assists a game in the regular season and about 6 during that playoff run, so he wasn't yet the amazing passer that we knew in the early 2010s. However, in 2020, LeBron was the first league-leading assister to win a championship since Magic in 1987, and that was because LeBron had taken the PG role during that season in a starting lineup that had Danny Green and KCP or Avery Bradley as the shooting guard and small forward. However, since '87, 7 leading scorers have won the championship, and an additional 7 have been in the finals. So although passing may be a valuable skill in the NBA, scoring seems to translate more to winning than passing. And I think that pairing a point forward with a scoring guard or big man is one of the best combinations you can have. Point forwards such as Larry Bird, LeBron James, Scottie Pippen, and Draymond Green have combined for 16 NBA championships. And the reason that these guys flourish, as opposed to the pure point guards, is that they're more versatile players in the playoffs who know when to switch gears. Larry Bird, who was a point forward before the term even existed, played with several Hall of Famers during his career. So although he was an incredibly talented scorer, he was also able to get guys like Kevin McHale and Robert Parrish involved with his passing. But he also played alongside point guards like Tiny Archibald, who was able to focus on scoring and passing, but not having to carry too much of the load, and also Dennis Johnson, who could focus on playing his world-class defense on the opposing team's guards while not having to exhaust himself creating plays for the offense. And I think that more teams should have emulated this formula going forward because it clearly worked for the Celtics, and then it worked for the Bulls when they had paired MJ with Pippen, and the Heat when they paired LeBron with Wade, the Cavs with LeBron and Kyrie, and the Lakers with LeBron and AD. And the point forward role also worked well for Draymond Green and the Warriors because it allowed guys like Curry, Klay, and KD to focus on scoring, although Curry was still able to be the point guard when he needed to be. Even the guy who everyone considers the greatest point guard ever, in Magic Johnson, was an anomaly pure point guard due to his 6'9" frame, because one of the things that made Magic so unique was his ability to switch positions like he did when he won his first ring playing center for the Lakers during the 1980 finals when Kareem got injured. So even a guy like him could be considered a point forward. And the modern day example for the pure passer being sort of a fail when you're trying to build a team around a superstar is Ben Simmons. Ben Simmons is a guy who, if he developed into a good scorer, would be a perfect pair alongside Joel Embiid because he could get everybody involved, but then he would also go for 20 a night, not to mention the elite defense, and it would just be a perfect pair. And Embiid is a guy who's so dominant that he doesn't need to play alongside a guy who's passing the ball. He needs to play alongside another killer, the same way Shaq didn't play with a great passer. He played with a guy like Kobe who could kill and be the closer. But if Markelle Fultz was actually the guy who the Sixers thought he was when they drafted him, the Sixers would be better off, because then in that situation, Ben Simmons could switch to the point forward role, and then Markelle Fultz could be the closer and the killer scorer who could be the guy who would help Embiid, in times of distress, because they at the moment again don't have another guy who's a great scorer who can be reliable, because as good as Tobias Harris is, he's not very reliable. And so I think that the idea that to be considered a point guard, that you have to be this pure pass-first player is outdated, because in the new age of basketball, every person on the court is able to score, pass, and defend. And Jokic winning MVP this year as a point center just proved to me that every player should just be put on the court to do what he's best at, no matter what position he's at. A point guard doesn't have to be a pass-first guy, he can be a scorer. And whether you want to call someone a combo guard, a scoring guard, or a pure point guard, they can all be point guards. Thank you.